And welcome back to another edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tom Johnston. I am joined by LaMarr Fields. How you doing, brother? How's your week been?
Been pretty good. Can't complain. Yours?
Just another fine, lovely week of just being productive in the whole 9 yards. So we got a lot to talk about because a lot of things have been happening baseball wise. First and foremost, this is out your territory, LaMarr, but you, Darvish, and the Padres agreed to a 6-year, $108 million contract, per se. Darvish right now is 36 years old. What are your thoughts on this contract? I know I've been, looking at the analysts at MLB Network that have been saying, the Padres are not really focused on the age factor and stuff like that. This shows that it's more of it's not a window that we're concerned with winning. It's more about we're investing for the long-term future.
Yeah, that's still an interesting contract for a 36-year-old pitcher, but he's had a good season last year. Improved on 2021. He struggled a little bit. 2022, 16 and 8 with a 3.10 ERA. Pitched 194.2 innings. Uh, a little long contract, but if they think he can stay healthy and I guess it's worth a go. I mean, I would personally wouldn't have signed him for the 6 year. I maybe did 2 or 3, but hey, maybe they're around him more than we are, so we see how it pans out.
Oh yeah. Just to give it perspective, the two previous contracts he's held in Major League Baseball, this being with the Rangers at 6 years, $56 million, and then with the Cubs at 6 years, $126 million. Uh, you know, the way I look at it is this, the Padres either see something or, it could go either way. I do know one thing is that, especially from this perspective, Darvish, like other professional baseball players that have come from Japan, the the rigorous of work per se that pitchers in Japan do, they have a heavier workload over there and stuff. Like a lot of the pitchers are used to 120 plus pitches an outing and this, that, there. I think that their pitching structures are totally different than like what they face in the States. I think that's sometimes where you kind of see like their progress kind of hinder a bit per se whenever they come to the States because it's not even just a whole like lifestyle readjustment, it's like a whole schedule readjustment too, because I think like in Japan they might pitch like once a week or something like that. Because I've like done research on it. Like it shows like they don't pitch as much as they would in the States like they do in Japan. So it's like that's probably why they have a predominantly more rigorous of a workload in Japan. But overall, I just think that in a lot of ways, Darvish at the end of this contract will be 42 if the contract is finished out in its entirety. And, you know, the Padres have been trying to show a bit, trying to step away from the stigmatism, I would say, in a bit is that, a lot of people are saying, oh, small market this, small market that. San Diego is relatively in a small size to medium sized market. I kind of compare it similarly to the Pirates in the kind of market that they're in. But their owners, the ownership of the Padres is actually trying to show something that, hey, we might be a small market. Kansas City's a small market. And even though it was in 2015 and whatnot, I mean, they still went to a World Series in a whole 9 yards a few years back. I mean, it's still better than not going to a World Series in like 20 plus years. But I think that in a lot of ways, some of these ownership groups of these smaller market teams per se are trying to like really show that, hey, we can do the big spending too. It's just a matter if your ownership in the front office wants to do the spending. And, I'm not here to say that, this deal may not pan out. Every deal that you make in Major League Baseball, for that matter, every other sport, you want it to pan out. It's just the fact of the matter is the development going to be there? And I think I seen another thing on MLB Network because I was actually watching the analysts kind of break this down. As in certain stats were actually starting to improve in a better direction for Darvish. So you really just got to ask yourself, this could actually really be a good move, and people, really question like, oh, you want to give a 36-year-old pitcher, this kind of money, but It's like we said, the Padres know what they're getting themselves into. I'm pretty sure they've done a lot of their research on him and stuff like that. And I'm interested to see how this works out. You can never say never. Maybe the prior two teams with the Cubs and with the Rangers, it may not have worked out for obvious reasons or whatever the case is, but who's to say what can happen? Hey, the Padres are the ones that are investing this money is what I really got to say. And, they're going to be the ones that are either going to have to eat the money or they're going to be really lucky to pay it out. But either way, hey, there's pros and cons that come with all these kinds of deals.
Yeah, it is. So to see how it's going to turn out.
Now, besides that, I'm not sure if you had any more to add on to that or not, because knowing it's going to be a West Coast team and a Giants and all that, it could be interesting. But who's to say? But I do know this: the World Baseball Classic does begin in just a little over a month. The polls have already been released. The U.S. of A., of course, a lot of people are excited about them. If you've had a chance to look at the polls, what teams most excite you first off, and who are you actually really looking forward to see in the World Baseball Classic?
I haven't really had a chance to look at the roster for polls yet. I'll pull it up right now. See.
I do know that based off of what I've seen, I'm going to say it like this. I really enjoy what Team Japan is putting together just because, a lot of people don't understand this. Sometimes in this kind of event, Japan puts together a team that, first off, Japanese baseball is very good. I actually do enjoy watching it. One of my dreams is actually to go to Tokyo and actually watch Japanese baseball live, just throwing that out there. But I also say it because of two reasons. For one, there are some players that play on Team Japan that ultimately you will see come over to the major league ranks in the U.S. one day and play, and it has happened in the past. I believe that Daisuke Matsuzaka, even though that's a fairy tale in of itself of some sort, he eventually came over to play in the pros, but I believe he also was playing for Japan in the WBC a while back. And I also believe Shohei Ohtani did the same thing. And, it's ultimately always great to see those kinds of players because they get to see, what, of course, what the entire event is like. I actually absolutely love the World Baseball Classic because it actually shows that the sport is growing in a magnitude of countries where you don't think it really is growing, and it is. I think baseball has, they could do a bit of a better job, but I also think that they've already done a good job with promoting it in other countries. You start to see, countries, that not necessarily would have baseball as a primary sport that are starting to really develop teams and develop players, more importantly, that actually end up making it to the professional ranks in baseball. And it's always a good thing to see because you see other countries starting to adapt to other sports, and I think it's a great thing for the game. But if I'm honest with people, I'm really looking forward to the Dominican Republic because for as many baseball players in the past that have come out of the DR, as they like to call it. They like to dub the Dominican Republic the DR, which is fine by me. But you ultimately see how a lot of those, great players, they end up coming into baseball and doing some great things. And, regardless of what certain players may have done in the past, you got to look at some of the current players that are currently from the DR that are in baseball, and they really just they really make a name for themselves at a young age. I think it goes to show the extreme commitment that the Dominican has in producing top tier baseball talent, but more importantly, it just goes to show that hey, it's not just an American sport; it's an international sport. But we're producing or getting to that level of producing to where we're able to have those players advance to the next level.
Yeah, I'm looking forward looking at the roster. The Dominican Republic roster's got a nice roster, man. Should be hard to beat.
Oh, it should.
Yeah,
Anytime
man.
you get the DR, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nelson
just
Cruz, Cano, Guerrero Jr., Wander Franco, Juan Soto, Julio Rodriguez. Yeah, stacked.
oh, it is. And then, of course, you got Nelson Cruz, the guy that just seems to never age. Like the dude's in his 40s and he's still playing. It's just like, listen, I'm not. I like to allow these tournaments and these teams to play out, but if I would actually pick a team to say flat out, just based off of what I think they can produce in this tournament, I'd say the DR has a very, very solid chance of winning. I mean, because just think about it. You got guys like Manny Machado, Vladdy Jr. You got now Robinson Cano is Robinson Cano. I mean, no disrespect to him, but just how he went about everything, and then unfortunately with the steroid juice and this, that, the other of what he got caught with, it's just like it just seemed ever since then, with the saga with the Yankees of him turning all that down, it just he got upset. But I mean, even then, you look at just the outfielders, these two outfielders and Juan Soto and Julio Rodriguez that, are on the DR. And you just know, like, what Juan Soto has done, what the Nationals traded him for. And then you also look at what Julio Rodriguez has done in just a short time in the major leagues. I mean, that's impressive. And then even then, you got Manny Machado, who everybody knows, he could be a very sneaky good guy at times and stuff. You got Rafael Devers in the whole 9 yards. But, I mean, it's just it's crazy just to see all these pitchers that they got. I mean, folks, if I'm honest with you, the DR probably has a solid chance to win this thing. But, besides that, I know Shohei Ohtani is going to be on Team Japan. That's no surprise. But I do want to point out to this. I did see this from Mike Trout, and that's that, he wanted to play in the WBC because he says, this is like the ultimate thing to win. Anything else is really considered a failure. What do you take away from him actually saying that?
What was that again?
I said that he basically said, playing in the WBC, it's like the ultimate thing because he says, like, if you don't win this, ultimately it like becomes a failure because it's just like it's basically like the Olympics of baseball without actually being in the Olympics.
Yeah, I agree with what he's saying. With the team that they got a stacked team, they should win it, but they still got to do it on the field. So I understand what he's saying. It's like the basketball team USA in basketball. It's win or disappointment.
Oh, it totally is. I mean, I think whenever you look at Team USA and what they have, you would expect like this is a kind of tournament where you would expect like the DR, Team USA, and like Team Japan to like really make it the furthest in the tournament. I mean, we've seen in the past how, Japan gets knocked out early in baseball, like they really take it to heart because it's just like there should be no reason we like get knocked out of a tournament of this magnitude like this early and stuff like that. But in all reality, it's just I kind of think of it as this, the US, they have a solid chance as well. It's just like you said, they got to
Hmm.
come to play. And, whenever you have a guy like Mike Trout, who knows, this could be his last time playing in the WBC. It's hard to say. I mean, he might elect to do it one more time, but where he's at in age, it's like it's in his primest position to, be there. But I also do want to get your thoughts on this and your analysis on this because there are a lot of coaches that come out and say, we don't really want our star players playing in the WBC because of the timetable of where it falls and stuff. But it's also like, this is spring training. And this is an event where you really go hard for something because there is a trophy at stake. You're able to, be in a big time competition. Whereas, in spring training, most of your star players, like if you're the Angels and you got Trout and Ohtani, you already know what they can do. You don't really want to play them. But like for a tournament of this magnitude, it's like it kind of is like you want to get their best out of them. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think that, coaches are right in a way, or if it's really up to the players what they want to do.
Well, I'm leaning to what the players they want to do. I mean, playing this tournament, but when the baseball real season starts, they might already be in form because they've been playing in some highly contested games, so they're gonna be ready to go once the season starts. They ain't gonna be ahead of the people play. They'll be ahead of the spring training players that's playing because the starters rarely play in spring training, and players that's playing this baseball practice are already gonna have tons of at bats against good pitching, so it'll be beneficial for them.
I agree. I think in some ways, whenever it comes to spring training, you see a lot of guys, like at least a lot of guys that know they're going to make the roster. It's like they don't really go that hard because they know that they're going to make the roster. Whereas, other guys, it's like, I got to do this because, long story short, like, the team doesn't really know what I can do, but I got an invite. So they obviously see something, but I got to prove myself. And I see that, but the thing that I guess where I kind of see it is as a manager, you shouldn't be mad, or even as a coach, you shouldn't be mad if your player does that because you know if I were a manager now, it's easy to say because right now I'm not. But if I'm a manager, I would actually be happy because wow, my guy gets to represent our great country, doing a sport that he loves and representing it at the highest level. I mean, that just shows that the talents that he has that represents the current team he's on. It also has kind of a reflection on me and my staff. Like that, that's a great accomplishment. Now, I'm pretty sure not a lot of these players, they kind of know how to like really treat their bodies and really train because they know that they can, have a lot of things. But I can almost say this too, in some ways, some of these other countries do send professional baseball players as well. It's just the seasons might be altered a little differently or whatever you might have it. But, I just think that in a lot of ways, there's a lot of other countries, primarily like Japan too, that, they might have a mixture, but I can almost bet you they still have a pool of players that actually play professionally in Japan that actually ultimately do play on the team. So, in a lot of ways, it's not just the U.S. that surrender stuff. I mean, the DR does too. They have guys that play professionally in the U.S. So I think in a lot of ways you have a lot of interchangeable cons that max up together. But overall, I think it's a great thing. I think that at the end of the day, it should be the player's decision. Ultimately, you only get so many tries at this, and you really want to succeed at every try you get. And I really think that, based off of where the U.S. especially is with baseball and how they can develop the talent, I think that that the U.S. really wants to put together a great team to where, they could say, yes, we are predominantly like a big powerhouse in the sport because, yeah, the DR might be great, Japan might be great, but a lot of their great players ultimately end up coming to the U.S. to play professional baseball, which in a lot of ways that would say that, hey, their best of the best comes to play with our best of the best. So, in a lot of ways, I could see why the U.S. really wants to try to win this. And hey, I mean, just seeing their roster and seeing who their hitting coach is, man, that's it never hurts to have a hitting coach like Ken Griffey Jr. in your
Yeah,
arsenal, man. That
yeah,
never hurts.
yeah. They got a good Andy Pettit pitching coach, Dave Rigetti bullpen coach. Yeah, they got a pretty good coaching staff. Jerry Manuel, the bench coach, Mark DeRosa, yeah, head coach. Nice.
I think they really said, you know what, we're going to really load up on this because we really want to try to win this. But more importantly, it's just like, we really just we want to put it out there that yes, some other professional players are playing in this too, and they're playing for their respective countries, which is all fine and dandy. But we really want to put together a great team to show people that, hey, the U.S. is a strong household. So, you got any more to say on that?
No, it's exciting.
Well, now we're going to transition to the Super Bowl because it is Super Bowl Sunday here, and it's been a couple weeks. I do know that a lot of people did not really watch the Pro Bowl festivities because, let's be realistic, whenever you have a bunch of skills competitions where it's like throwing dodgeballs at one another, and then, you kind of, I honestly don't even understand this part of it either, is you have a flag football game as your like game of some sort. I don't get that. That's beyond me. But even then,
Yeah,
now
a lot of people enjoyed it. I enjoyed it myself. It was better than watching that. It's better than watching them last 4 or 5 Pro Bowls that I've seen, which is basically flag football.
I mean, allow me to say this: if like I have no problem with how the NFL wants to structure their All-Star games or their All-Star festivities. Like, if you see that something isn't working, and hey, maybe the ratings and the viewership is up this time, that's great. I mean, I know unfortunately I really didn't get to watch it yet, but I got to see highlights of certain things. But maybe you should take that rule out of if you're playing in a Super Bowl. You're actually able to partake in that stuff now because I do know that in the past couple of years they did not allow that, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it is what it is. But
Used to always be back in the '90s when the Pro Bowl actually was good. It used to be after the Super Bowl.
yeah, we missed the
I don't
good
know why they changed it.
because it's the NFL, I guess. It's just
Yeah.
it's tough. But anyway, Eagles and their counterparts today, the Chiefs. This is going to be a very good game for a lot of reasons. You have two quarterbacks that are very dynamic at what they do. You also have an Eagles defense that, okay, give granted, they had a playoff game of the ages a couple weeks ago because you got to think to yourself, Brock Purdy got injured. He was done, and then you were down to like your 4th-string quarterback that really didn't get much of the practice reps and this, that, the other. So I could see why the Eagles did what they did. But now transitioning to this game where you're the Eagles defense, but you have a predominantly very talented Patrick Mahomes that knows how to read different schemes, knows how to do the whole 9 yards, and he could be lethal with it all. And I think he showed us, or at least proved to us 2 weeks ago or so that, or 3 weeks ago for that matter, that I could be having a severe injury, but I'll still step it up for my team because that is my job on this team as the quarterback. What do you think overall that showed about Patrick Mahomes? But more importantly, how do you think it goes to show about this matchup tonight?
Yeah, it should be a good matchup, man. Can't wait to watch. Hopefully, it lives up to expectation. Sometimes you get pumped up for your Super Bowls and they don't be as good as expected. But hopefully, this one is different. I think it will be, man. You got two good teams going at it. Just want to see how the chess match goes between the coaches and the adjustments that's going to be made during the game and at halftime.
I think that this game is going to be one for the ages. I honestly say that for 3 reasons. Okay, you have the Eagles and where they're at. Nobody actually expected this to really happen, but you have the Eagles with Hurts and Sanders and what they've been able to do. You have the wide receiving core being as lethal as they could be, but more importantly, you have this Eagles defense that has led the season secretly in a lot of different categories, and one of them being sacks. Like they had like 70 plus sacks on the season in a regular season. That's just abysmal. Like I don't think people understand how tough it is to actually like get a sack as a defense in the NFL, depending on who the quarterback is in the opposing offensive scheme. But like to have 70 plus of them, like that's impressive. But I think that it's not going to, the defense is going to be lethal, but it's not going to have the game that they had against like the 49ers because, again, this is Patrick Mahomes you're talking about. And I'm honestly going to even say this. Patrick Mahomes is immune to the Super Bowl like level status because he's played in like what 3 of them in like the past how many years? Like he's been there. So it's like, he knows the level of this stage. And don't crucify me for making this kind of comparison, but it's kind of a similar early level to like what Tom Brady has been able to do because after so long of you getting to that level, it's just like, the stage, but you're not so nervous because you've been at the level. So it's like, you know what to expect and you're able to help calm down your other teammates who might be a little bit younger than you, might not, have as much experience as you, but you being the quarterback, the anchor of that offense, you're really able to like rely on your experience for a lot of different things. go figure, Juju Smith-Schuster signs a 1-year deal, and he's in the Super Bowl, a former Steeler. Not saying you can predict that, because you can't predict that being possible. But, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a great game. I think the line in itself, the spread shows just how tough this game's going to be whenever it's like minus and plus 1.5. So it's like, if you place a bet, the opponent obviously has to win by 2 or more points. But I think that in a lot of ways, Vegas is even showing that this specific game, it's really just going to be it's going to be too close to really call. So I think that the line is right where it should be in a lot of ways. But I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see, Pat Mahomes actually having 2 weeks off, being able to rest and this, that, the other. A lot of people say he's at 100%. I'm not a medical doctor. I haven't been the one checking up on him, but at the end of the day, you got to roll with what you roll with. And, I think we're going to see a very good game. I think we're going to see the offenses and defenses go at it in a big way.
Yeah, I think so too. It's gonna be a good game. See if the Chiefs offensive line can block the Eagles defensive line, man. They come at you in waves. They got tremendous depth.
You had to pick one player on the offense on either side that's going to have a game. Who do you think it is and why?
Thinking Miles Sanders. Run that ball and keep Mahomes off the field. Run that clock a little bit.
Hey, I'll be supporting Miles just because he's from the Pittsburgh area. For those who don't know, he went to Woodland Hills High School, and then, of course, he went on to Penn State, had himself a nice career there, even being mentored in the backfield by Saquon Barkley and the likes. But then, to even have the career that he has had so far with the Eagles is quite impressive. And it's kind of funny, he's for those who don't know, he's actually in the last year of his current contract with the Eagles. So, in some ways, he's going to become a free agent, and it's hard to say if he's going to resign with the Eagles or where he's going to go. But I do know this is that he is showing that he can, for one, run miles, and for two, he is a very physical back that in a lot of ways just can produce when called upon. And I think that he's shown a lot. I do recall his press conference during Super Bowl week where he really shouted out James Franklin and the Penn State staff for what they're focused on, and that's development. And I can almost guarantee you that in a lot of ways, he's a reflection of not only just the development at Penn State, but the development with the Eagles. He's had a few rough patches, but that hasn't stopped him from, producing at the rate that he has. He's shown that he's willing to block, he's willing to catch, he's willing to run, he's willing to do the nitty-gritty, to say the least, for a running back. I would say Miles Sanders, but there's also another player that I'm actually really looking forward to, actually two players, and yes, they are both quarterbacks of each team. I am very excited to see what Jalen Hurts can do, and more importantly, what Pat Mahomes can do, just because I'm excited to see how the level and the talent of Pat Mahomes is where it's gotten to and what he's proven he can do. I'm interested to see how he can do it against a very tough Eagles defense that is very much in depth and that has shown what they could show. But more importantly, I'm interested to see, what Jalen Hurts can do against the Chiefs and how he's able to do it. These teams have both good offense and defensive attacks. And I think what it's going to be the name of the game of is which defense can actually hold the other offense to limited time and limited possession. In a lot of ways, that's what football comes down to, is how quick can the opposing defense get the opposing offense off the field, but more importantly, how much can the opposing offense keep the opposing defense on the field. So I think it's really going to come down to a lot in that statistical category. But that's why the game is going to be played. I think it's going to be a Super Bowl for the ages. You got Rihanna performing at halftime, but a lot of the ticket prices, even for this game, have been through the roof, per se. But I think it's going to be an overall great thing. Do you think that this might break the viewership record for the Super Bowl by any chance?
I don't know. It's tough. It'd be a good game, but I doubt it.
I think it might be up there, because for one, even though you've had Pat Mahomes that has been to the Super Bowl and the Chiefs that have been to the Super Bowl, a couple times throughout the past couple years and so on and so forth, I just think that a lot of fans are going to be really intrigued because this is a great matchup no matter which way you look at it. Like, it's very, I don't want to say even, but it's very well, like, stacked together. I don't really ever think that a match can be even because somebody's always going to find something to, like, outdo or out execute. But overall, I just think that in a lot of ways, this is going to be a game for the ages. And I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing it. This is the first time in some time I could say, hey, even Pat Mahomes that has been there and done that, I'm excited to see what the Chiefs and what the Eagles can do. And I think it's a fun fact. Something about Penn State football having a player play consecutively in the Super Bowl, because I do know whenever it was narrowed down to the championship games and whatnot, this I believe is like the 57th year or something like that, where like a player from Penn State is going to be playing in a Super Bowl. And I think that that's a very impressive stat, to say the least, because it shows, and nothing against any other program. It's just that sticks out because Miles Sanders went to Penn State, so he's obviously going to be playing it. And if not, I do know that even if the 49ers were playing, that stat was still going to exist. And I forget the other team that was going to exist on too. But, I mean, it's just impressive to see some of these college football programs and the talents that they've produced over the years. But more importantly, just to see, programs and players shine on the biggest stages. I'm happy for the state of Pennsylvania as a whole because, there's at least one team that's representing the state. And more importantly, it's going to be a great game. I just can't emphasize that enough. That's going to be a great game.
Yeah,
you watch
should
college
be.
wrestling at all?
No.
Well, long story short, Penn State is looking to clinch the number one overall seed. They basically have done that. Other than that, I do know that the dual meet season ends today, and then they get a few weeks of a break, basically until the end of February, and then the Big Tens and the ACC, the Pac-12, and what other conference am I missing? The Big 12. They all have their conference tournaments, and then much like March Madness starts, Madness starts in March. Do you have anything more to add, LaMarr?
Pitchers and catchers next week in baseball.
Yes, folks. Baseball season is getting revamped up. The fact of let's put it this way: what team, based off of say who they've brought back and what teams that have made some noise in the offseason, what team are you looking forward to most with pitchers and catchers?
I ain't really thought about it. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it like that.
We'll think of that on a future podcast.
Yeah.
That is that's a topic for maybe next week or the week after. But overall, it's great to see baseball coming back in the fold, folks. It's already February, so pretty soon the season's going to be here, and we'll have a lot more baseball content to talk about. But the good news is that Super Bowl's tonight. We're not going to give any predictions just because, or at least I'm not, just because, I'm personally just a fan to see this whole thing play out and, see how it goes. But, ultimately, one way or another, I do know that something's gonna exist. But besides that, baseball season's about to get into full swing. So that's going to do it for this edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. For LaMarr Fields, I'm Tom Johnston. We will see you guys on the next one.